Hey guys, it's Comics G-Man here today. I'm going to talk about something a little different. I'm just going to talk about how people debate each other about comics on in the year 2025. And I'm going to talk about how people can't help but try to one-up each other on things that don't really matter anymore or really shouldn't matter in our lives, especially when reading comics, but it does and it comes up. So first, it is going back to One World Under Doom, number 6. And there's this one guy who puts out harsh reviews on pretty much most of the comics that come out. And like there's some times where he has some really good points. And I also want to talk about, but I want to talk about like these people that were kind of going after him about having a critical opinion on this issue. So this guy here, Amoebus is his name. He says to about this issue. He says, once again, a very foreseeable move by Doom that the, quote, smartest man on Earth never saw coming. And since when does Reed call himself the world's smartest man? Now, this isn't the best criticism I've seen Amoebus make. It's not as well thought out. There's times where he comes out with criticisms and he backs it up with a lot of well-meaning references and everything. He knows his stuff. But I want to talk about the reaction to this. Now, there's just like one or two bad ratings for this issue, but look at this, right? This guy here, Winks, whatever his name is, he says to Amoebus, he says, North is the best thing to happen to Fantastic Four in decades. I'm sorry that you aren't able to see this. I assume North hating on authoritarians made you sad. Now, that's ridiculous. And look, this guy, F this site is his name. He responds, yes, the guy, Amoebus he's referring to, the guy who gave Moss a 10 hates people hating on authoritarians. Mind your business, Karen. He calls him a Karen. Then this guy named Chuck Turds comes up and he says, anti-woke doofuses are so easily triggered. Sad. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I don't see where anything. What did Amoebus says that's woke, anti-woke or whatever? I don't understand. And then this guy Hex says, "Get him, Chuck." And then I come in here and I say, "Yeah, wait a minute, guys. F this site is correct. Amoebus giving Moss a 10 kind of breaks your argument to pieces. You should look through people's reviews before making assumptions. And secondly, even though I love this issue, there are some valid criticisms. One review in here talks about how Doom is usually more nuanced and always treats Latveria benevolently, so to use their souls seems like a total destruction of the character. People on here should be allowed to not like a comic, come on." And then Chuck Turds responds to me, he says, "Lol, please, go look at the comments he left with his ones and twos, just whining about wokeness and identity politics. Him calling other people Karens in this is cherry on top. Nobody whines more than bigots when the world doesn't constantly reflect them. Fucking babies. Name dropping Moss is like a racist telling people they have a black friend so they can't possibly be racist." And then he continues, "To be clear, I'm talking about F this site, not Amoebus. I have no problem with Amoebus not liking North's take on Fantastic Four, but clowns like F this site review bomb anything that is woke, which to them means treating people who aren't white straight males with dignity or critical of fascism." So, I mean, I did look into what he was talking about, and I didn't find it what he's talking about. In fact, I even found F this site saying that he likes woke sometimes. Like, it's the complete opposite of what this turd guy is talking about. And so I say to him here, I briefly looked through some of their ones and twos, and I didn't see what you're referring to. Amoebus specifically, when he really gets into criticizing an issue, really goes into the meat and uses references from old comics. He knows his stuff. He's really good when he refers to Fantastic Four, and I respect that. Even if, though, and I'm saying here, even if, like say F this site was what Chuck Turds is accusing him of. I say here, it's not my goal to police people's past reviews or thoughts. this review of his is not as thoughtful, but when he really gets into it, it's some good stuff to me. And secondly, if these guys bother you, why give them any thought and do your own thing? Like, this new issue has mostly good scores from users, including me. Why go out of your way to mess with the 1 or 2 guys who hated it? I think people should be allowed to express themselves, so it leaves room for people to reflect. Like the first comment says, quote, well, I said like the first comment on this, responding to the criticism, it says, I assume North hating on authoritarians made you sad. Like, saying Amoebus doesn't like this comic is because he's pro-authoritarian or something, which is ridiculous. I said that seems very childish to me. And also, I want there to be people who have different opinions. Otherwise, it's just a bubble of everyone saying the same thing, and it becoming a non-stop love fest. Sometimes critical reviews make me think of things from a different perspective more than a positive review does. Like, why didn't you guys debate with the review that gave this issue a 4? That guy claimed he made a whole new account just to shit on this issue and give his valid reasons for doing so. I think it would be more interesting to debate about the story rather than everyone trying to one-up each other with modern-day politics. And then F this site finishes it off by saying, I've given like 2 books a 1 and said woke was a good thing. I don't know what they think review bombing is. I mean, they're just throwing out the bigot card and outright lying, or just not bothering to look into what they're saying. Some people just want to virtue signal and argue. I just hate Karens being snide punks instead of simply saying, hey, what about this take on the book instead? They're mad at being called out on their poor behavior and can only act offended even though they are the offender, even though they are the offender punk-ass behavior. Yeah, so I think F this site, I didn't say any more because I thought F this site, he ended it off pretty good. He had a good point there. There wasn't really much else to go on. Lastly, there's this other guy that I follow. His name is Chris Y. He made it just a quick, he gave this giant-sized Dark Phoenix Saga #1, he gave it a 1. And he said, the desecration continues. Who at Marvel thought this was a great idea? And he gets attacked right away by this guy called Nick Jenkins. And Nick Jenkins says to Chris, yet you bought a copy and evidently read it. Glad you have money to burn on copies of comics that only enrage you. And Chris says, glad you have so much time on your hands. You spend it hate commenting on other people's reviews. Pathetic. And then Nick Jenkins replies, assuming you have a job, you spent a lot more time earning the money to buy a $4.99 comic than I did writing these comments. And then Chris responds with an emoji like he's laughing at this guy's face because he's being an asshole. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? I don't understand. Like, there's stuff that I bought before in my life, like whether it's books or games, and I bought it because I thought I would like it, and I didn't like it. Like, what does that have to do? I don't understand what the guy is trying to say. I don't think most people are buying stuff to shit on it. Like, I think most people buy stuff because they're interested or they're going to give it a chance. And if it's not what they thought it would be, then that's it. What are you going to do? I don't go out of my way to buy stuff I know I'm not going to like. Like, one, I don't want to waste the money on that, and secondly, I'd rather spend the money on something I know I'm going to like. And once in a while, I'll take a risk on something that I'm not sure about. And then it's something new, and if it turns out to be great, it's even more like, wow, I found something new that I like, So F this site, again, comes back on this, and he says here, he responds to Nick Jenkins' bullshit. He says, why do you think he bought it? Your whole insult is based on him spending money on this garbage. Most people who hate read, or probably review on here in general, read their books for free online, right? You're being a Karen and a dumb one at that. Stay in your own lane. And then Chris responds to that. He says, pretty much my thoughts, however, I don't hate read. I have been an X-Men fan for decades, and I want these books to be good. When they are, they get good reviews from me. When they aren't, I call them out on the bullshit. And Chris is not lying. I mean, I've been following him for maybe a couple of years on this site, like just looking at his reviews sometimes, and he is a big X-Men fan. I mean, he reads even the worst X-Men stuff that I wouldn't even waste my time reading. And he's pretty fair with his reviews, But when he criticizes, like, he's right most of the time, and he's got a right to feel the way he does. I like the stuff he says about it. But he's a big X-Men fan. I'm not a big X-Men fan, but I have read some of the stuff. But he like reads every X-Men thing, dude. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, I respect that. And then F this site responds to Chris. He says, "I didn't think you hate Reed. It just sounded like he was accusing you of doing so. And I've been reading X-Men since I was 15, and now I'm 50. And I can say this is the worst time in X-Men history, in my opinion. So most reviews are going to be bad, especially by folks who remember the glory days. Hard to like tofu when you grew up eating steak." Yeah, I mean, these guys have been around longer than me reading comics. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to fucking tell them they're full of shit. These guys have been reading comics a long time. Chris responds to him. He says, "Absolutely, yeah. I agree about this being the worst time in X history. And I lived through the horrible early 90s and the Morrison run, which I hated. But at least he was a real writer, not an activist. I'm at a point now where I'm actually losing my interest completely, and I'm still somewhat invested in Uncanny X-Men and Storm because they feature some of my favorite X-Men. But I'm sure the upcoming Age of Revelation will fuck up those books as well." Yeah, so he says it's a great jump off point, so thanks, Marvel. And then one of the jerks come back, Chuck Turds, and he says, "I have to say the teeth gnashing of anti-woke haters makes me very happy, so keep it up, dipshits." And then F this site responds saying, "Nothing interesting to say from the comic fluffer. Typical. Tens for everyone with no reason other than you have no brain to evaluate anything. Just take what they give you without question. Woke isn't the real problem. It's bad stories rolled up in a virtue burrito that has no flavor, numbnuts. Woke is a good thing a lot of bad writers hide behind." That's what F this site says. Then Chuck Turd says, "Glad to hear you like my work." I don't even think these guys know what they're saying. I think they're just looking for bullshit or something. Then Chris says, "Hiring woke activists instead of writers is a problem. The reason the stories are bad is because the emphasis is on indoctrination." And then asshole Chuck Turd says, "Go have a cry about it, okay?" And then Chris responds, "Isn't crying your job, snowflake?" Chuck says, "Stay mad, bro." And then this guy Hex comes back in and he says, "The anti-woke mob is easier to trigger than those they call snowflakes. All you have to do is call an individual they in a panel and they lose their minds. Sorry all of the he-hims lose their minds. Crap, I did it again." Like, what is he talking about? You are the ones who started attacking these guys. Like, you're the ones who are having a fit that they have a different opinion. What are you talking about?